right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Please grab some coffee, pastries, water, and get ready to get started.
By the way, can you? That's good to hear. Have you been since I've last seen you?
All right. All right. Well, welcome everyone. I am pleased to see such a large group in person. This is fantastic. It's been a long time coming. Appreciate you all being here. And at that, I will, as is sort of our custom, I'll turn over to Mr. Winslow for our Pledge of Allegiance. All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. At this time, we do have a statement regarding virtual meetings that is in the notes which are online, and I would ask that we please do our roll call attendees and certify that we have quorum.
Charles City County, Mr. Coda. I see you, Mr. Coda.
Here.
Thank you. Chesterfield County, Mr. Carroll.
Aye, here.
Mr. Davy.
Here.
Ms. Haley. Here. Mr. Holland. Mr. Engel.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Winslow.
Here.
Wright County, Mr. Baca. Mr. Brannon. Mr. Mackey.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Mackey. Reverend Nelson. Mrs. O'Bannon. Here. Mr. Schmidt. Mr. Thornton.
Here.
Town of Ashland, Dr. McGraw.
Here.
City of Richmond, Mr. Addison.
Here.
Mr. Blackwood. Mr. Giovia.
Here.
Mr. Jones. Ms. Lambert. Ms. Lynch. Dr. Newville. Here. Mr. Poole. Ms. Robertson. Mr. Lockwood. New Kent County. Mr. Moyer.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Moyer. H.
Here.
Richland County, Mrs. Laspalette. Mr. Spoonhour.
Here.
Hanover County, Mr. Davis.
Here.
Mr. Peterson.
Here.
Ms. Pritchard. Mr. Waddell.
Here.
Mr. Whitaker.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. Powhatan County, Mr. Byerly.
Here.
Mr. Hall. And if I may, I'll just go back. Mr. Baca.
Yes, here, Martha. Yeah, I'm here. Yes.
Mr. Schmidt. And did I miss anyone who's on the call or in the room? Mr. Engel?
I'm here. Is Jim Holland on the call?
I don't think so. Mr. Holland? I don't believe so. Okay, we do have a forum. We do have a forum.
Come on. I know you're ready to move on.
I apologize.
Wow.
We do have a forum.
That's what you call real-time feedback, Joe. All right, now we're going to move on to our consent agenda, where we will be looking to approve the agenda and the meeting minutes. Hopefully you've had a chance to review them. Oh, I'm really sorry. It is time for our public comments. Do we have any that have been submitted, or is there anyone online or in the room?
We did not receive any comments prior to the meeting by the deadline.
There's Mr. Allen. All right. Okay, so I will, hearing none or having received none, I will close the public comment period. And now move to the consent agenda for the approval of the agenda and meeting minutes. Hopefully you had a chance to review them. And I will entertain a motion at this time.
So, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Noodle. Upstairs. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signal by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, the motion passes. Thank you very much. All right, so this is my chance to say a few things, and so if you will indulge me, it won't be long. I tried to write it, but I'm not really good at staying on script, as you probably have learned by now. It has been a tremendous honor being chair for the last 11 months or so during some pretty interesting times. Being in this position, I learned so much, obviously, about the organization, and it's really hard to wrap your head around how much we do, and actually how much the staff does, and the value that they bring to the region. Every conversation seems that I had with Martha as I was engaging this, every week, I was learning more and more and more about what we did. And as elected officials, we hope that we can have some lasting positive impact on what we leave behind. But this staff comes to work every day with the goal of making generational change. That's pretty special. I'll be honest, I didn't know jobs like that existed when I was in college, or maybe I would have went into planning. I take a ton of pride in being behind the wheel of this ship for a little while. I know I'm leaving this in the very capable hands of Mr. Winslow, and I want to thank him for being a great vice chair. We had a lot of great conversations, got to know each other really well, and I wanted to thank him for that. I also want to thank Mr. Holland, who taught me more about finance than I can, a lot of conversations, and just really appreciate everything I've learned. I know it's helped me even in my small business that I run. I'll be taking some of those things that you taught me and just showing how to lead through some financially difficult times. So I thank you for your leadership there. I also want to thank Mr. Peterson for stepping in as treasurer. I had a kind of dubious role. In 1 year, I was secretary, treasurer, and chair. So I got a really well-rounded experience. So I appreciate that. Mr. Davey, the leadership with the outreach committee and engagement committee, that is critically important. I think that work needs to continue, and I think what they've done, setting up a bench of resources to help get the word out about what we do, is incredibly important. So I'm sure I'm leaving people off, but I really want to thank our staff who I got to know a little bit, not as much because of COVID. I've got to attend a couple picnics and do some lunches to recognize some high performers. I want to thank them for that, because we did some amazing things of time. Obviously, we are stewards of our citizens' tax dollars. We ended the year on a very strong financial note. So if you were so inclined to maybe put your hands together for that we turn that around. So thank you very much for that. We have 9 localities after quite a bit to agree to some charter amendment changes. So that's pretty amazing. So I think we should give ourselves a round of applause for that. Kind of helped birth this thing that Mr. Thornton is very familiar with, known as the Central Virginia Transportation Authority. That was a pretty heavy lift, and we're still lifting, and look forward to see where that's going. So great job there. So not a bad year. I'd also like to thank Mr. Gregory for his hours and hours of counsel and support, a lot of conversations, and just really being there. I've never worked so much with an attorney in my life, and I've been through a divorce. So that's saying something. And obviously, I'd like to thank Ms. Here. I couldn't ask for a better executive director for my first chair position ever. I've always had somebody that I could go to and look to, and Martha, you set a very high bar for the organizations that I wanted to chair in the future. So I'm not sure if people will meet that bar, but I thank you for that, and thank you for having that. I'm going to go out on little turn here, and I'll wrap this up soon. I have one other person to thank. I was walking some property in Goshen the other day, which is a wonderful thing to do, in case you know, it was down by the river, but it was with a developer, and I pulled in, and it's way back in the woods, but it was a beautiful scene. And he said to me, so we met at like 2 o'clock. He said, so are you retired? I laughed. I said, no. He says, well, do you work? Like, do you have a full-time job? Like, I really was asking if I was independently wealthy. I'm like, well, I do work. And I explained to him that 12 years ago, my wife, Brennan, took a huge risk and left her role as marketing director of Fox Richmond and started her own advertising agency. She has built that agency to a small, powerful force here in Richmond. We have 7 folks with us, and we have some of the largest accounts. And people often wonder how it is we do it. And it's because of her hard work. I joined her 3.5 years ago, and that has afforded me the opportunity to do this. Many men will say that it's the whys behind them are really attributed to their success. And I can say that in many more ways, it's especially true. Not only does she give me the emotional support and encouragement that I need on the daily, but she keeps that business running. She's working 10 to 12 hours behind the scenes serving, building that business, so I can be out here serving. And I just have never had the opportunity to thank her.
Oh,
So thank you, Brennan. I love you. Brennan, either thank or blame for me being able to do this. I sat with you last night writing these and had to try to come up with the big closure. You need to have a big beginning, short middle, strong end. And I don't have a strong end because I'm not going anywhere. I'm just changing chairs. So at this time, I'd like to pass the gavel to our new chair, and I'd ask Ms. here to take over the reins here.
Neil, on behalf of the entire commission, we want to thank you. I mean, when you consider what Neil did, he ran for election in 2019, became an elected official January 1, 2020, representing District 2 in Goochland, and then really took over as chair of this body without any sort of a framework or reference point. And not only does that take a lot of leadership, and you demonstrated that this whole year, but it takes a lot of character. And I think that when I think of Neil Spoonhour, I think of a man of sincerity, a man who is genuine and a hard worker. And please accept this on behalf of the entire commission, just a token of our gratitude for your service this year. We really, really appreciate it, sir. Thank you. We're being asked to stage that again.
Oh. It's like Eugene all over again. My first paparazzi now.
That's right.
Please.
I'm not really good at waiting.
You can open it.
Bubble wrap. Exactly. Aw.
Well, I've seen his living room in the office. If I may, I'd like to ask our elected officers if they would please join me over here.
In front of the snacks, that sounds
That's dangerous.
So, obviously, Ms. Davis, Paige, Mr. Miley.
All right.
These are official induction officers. This Mr. Stringhauer reminded me, we weren't able to do this last year because we were completely virtual during this tenure, but this is back to some of the normal. If you'll repeat after me, we have an oath for all of our elected officers, our chairman, our vice chairman, our treasurer, and our secretary. Please,
Okay.
repeat your oath after me. I do hereby solemnly swear
I do hereby solemnly swear
that I will fulfill and I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge all of the duties incumbent upon me
discharge all the duties incumbent
That's the.
as specified in the charter and bylaws
as specified in the charter and bylaws
of the Richmond Regional Planning District.
of the Richmond Regional Planning District.
Ladies and gentlemen, our 2022 officers.
All right, well, thank you for indulging all of that. I know most of you because I've served on this body for going on 5-6 years now. And I just want to start by saying I will make sure that Martha has my cell phone given to each one of you. And that if anytime you want to talk about any business, be happy to do that. I'll make myself available to do that. I grew up in Gloucester County. Was not too far away, and moved to Richmond from law school. In fact, did law school in California after joining the Navy. Came back to Richmond, set up a small firm which has grown over the years. And so we're right in the village of Midlothian. My wife is a public accountant for KPMG. She's been there 20 years. We have a 8-year-old girl and a 3-year-old boy. And if you've raised a 3-year-old, you know that it's basically like having a blender without a lid. So we're busy. We were up at 5 o'clock this morning. Oh, I say we because I wasn't initially, but became so very shortly, around 5:01. So with that, I just want to say thank you all for faith in me, and we'll do a good job this year and keep things on track. And with that, we just move right along here to our fiscal year 22 meeting schedule. And this is an action item. PlanRVA Executive Committee talked about this earlier, and you have this, you should have this schedule in your packet. Martha, any opening comments on it?
Thank you. Yes, I will note, this is on page 8 of your packet, and my apologies, and thanks to Mr. Davis. I guess I can't get my brain wrapped around the reality of 2022 being before us. So there is an error in that. The February to June meetings are 2022 dates. But this is the schedule before you. The executive committee did discuss this and is recommending to you that the full commission, so that column, center column there, schedule be adopted for meetings to be convened at 9 o'clock each month. We do have 3 months in the schedule where we are proposing cancellation. August, just to be able to, I think, acknowledge the speed with which everything has been moving this last year, but also to give folks a little bit of a summer break. November, our regularly scheduled meeting would be in conflict with the Veterans Day holiday. And then in January, we recommend cancellation as well, just to be able to give our local governments the time at their normal organizational meetings to occur. So happy to answer questions and or entertain a motion, I think, when you're ready.
Anybody have any questions or comments about this schedule? And I just know executive committee is going to meet a little bit earlier, from 8:15 to 8 o'clock. We're going to move the meeting back a little bit just so we have enough time to get through things in the morning. Other than that, you see the asterisk there on Veterans Day for that executive meeting. And certainly I think that's about the only noteworthy item on here, but if there's other comments, I'm going to take those now.
Move for approval, Chairman.
All right, Mr. Peterson moves for approval. Your
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Haley. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you, it's unanimous. And one thing we need to probably discuss here, this virtual participation in public meetings. And so I'm just trying to cover this briefly, but of course, we're all aware that we had the virtual format during the pandemic. And so Virginia code allowed us to do that. And we've been doing that, during this time. However, the timing of the expiration of statewide emergency declaration occurred. And so now we're looking at going forward, the PlanRVA and other regional public bodies as defined in Richmond City Ordinance are permitted but not required to conduct meetings by virtual format. Regardless of that, we're going to meet in person beginning on August 1, 2021. And any member that wishes to participate virtually can do so pursuant to the circumstances, permitted by FOIA and subject to regular virtual meeting procedures to be presented and adopted by the commission. So we're going to continue to update you on this topic, but just want to keep the public informed of how we're meeting and make sure we have transparency in that process. And you have any other comments you want to make on that, Martha?
Given the schedule, we will work to provide under FOIA, if I'm not mistaken, there are new requirements that public bodies must adopt their own procedure for virtual participation. So we will work to provide that draft to you for your consideration at the September meeting. And in the meantime, we will be adjusting our technology to be more focused on an in-person meeting with a live stream for benefit of the public.
I think that's worked well. And so hopefully that's one good thing that comes out of the pandemic for all of us. And let's see here. Committee assignments. Martha, you want to
Sure.
take that on?
As a point of information, we do have, thanks to the members, I believe that at the September meeting, also Mr. Winslow will make an official appointment, but we are operating with the continuation of our finance committee chaired by Mr. Holland, so thank you for that. And with continued membership from Mrs. O'Bannon, Mr. Peterson, and then with Mr. Byerly joining the group. Certainly if there's anyone else who is interested in serving on that committee, please let myself or Mr. Winslow know. Again, we'll be making that formal memorialized appointment at the September meeting.
If I can make a comment real quick.
Please, Ms. Van.
We're also working on the location, the facilities location with the possibility of moving. So if there is someone that in real estate or something that wants to participate, I think that would be a good addition to the committee. Mr. Holland?
I fully concur. I'm so thankful that we have such an outstanding committee, which is evident, as you will see. So yes, we are working on that. So your expertise, your insight, suggestions is welcome. I appreciate it.
Can I ask a question to that extent, Mr.
Yes.
Bannon? Are we using an agent?
Oh, yes. But
Because I can say we're going to that with GRP as well, as you know. There have been significant opportunities.
Exactly. That's
cost
private,
savings
yes.
as well.
And that, obviously, that's one of the reasons we've done this. Plus their lease is coming up in 22.
Yeah, you're
22.
behind.
And
what
so we've been
GRP is
working
this
on it,
year.
yes, already, but if somebody wants to join in, because we have, about a dozen choices or something. So somebody who is who is a participant could give some tips. That's mostly what I'm hoping, is if there's somebody that wants to join the committee.
I mean, I'd be happy to help to the extent that I've been very involved as chair of the GRP and the process that we're going through, because our lease expires the end of this year. So we're, very much committed to making a decision in the next 30 days. So what we've experienced and seen as we've looked even broader than just downtown Richmond. So if I can be helpful, I'd be happy to share.
And we changed their hidden bylaws, their
Charter.
in order to allow some flexibility
Yeah.
on this. So
Right.
if you'd like to join, that's
Sure, I'd be happy.
okay. So she'll be on the finance committee too.
All right. Have you been voluntold or something?
Thank you.
All right.
That would be a great experience.
Sure.
Yes, yes.
The finance committee, since we first founded, though, has had somebody represented from the city. I don't think we have that on the list.
And so
We
this
have
group, and I just say it this way, we'll formalize the members in September. I think we're looking to do that on all these committees. So that's a good thing to keep in mind, and we would like to have representation. So we can have further discussion, I think. Right. We talked about that earlier.
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to work on that. I think.
But in the meantime, I am representing the city on that.
one of the-
But I'll
I
talk
just
to you
didn't want their
after.
name.
No, I'll talk to you afterwards.
All right.
Thank you. Wait a minute.
I'm happy to share the responsibilities with Dr. Newbill in case she needs it.
There you go. Okay.
See,
There we
We'll get back.
Okay.
We do have one other standing committee. Well, we have the executive committee, so that has already been addressed. So I skipped over that. But in addition to the finance committee, we have one other standing committee of the board, and that is the public engagement and outreach committee. Mr. Davey has agreed to continue in the chairmanship role, and Mr. Thornton is the other member of that committee right now. Through the transition of appointments and that kind of thing, we did lose a few members this past year, and so certainly would love to be able to extend the invitation on behalf of the committee for others to join. We will be convening that group in the coming weeks to be able to get going. And I would say that this is an exciting time to join a committee, particularly as we undertake a lot of work this coming year in improving our presence in our member jurisdictions. We had some conversations about that this morning in the executive committee, out in the community, really trying to improve our participation rate in our planning efforts, and really to be able to share the good works as Mr. Peterson, sorry, as Mr. Spoonhour kind of had the highlights of some of the accomplishments last year. I don't think that this organization oftentimes does a great job of celebrating those things, and so we want to make sure that's a focus this coming year. Mr. Davey or Mr. Winston, if you have other comments, but we're interested in having more members.
Yeah, exactly. I do think it's a really important time right now. I mean, both in reach to make sure we all understand what the priorities are, so we can all be speaking the same script when we're talking to others. And then outreach for a municipal or institutional body, it's hard. You feel like you're sort of tooting your own horn, but to some degree, that's why we've hired the bench strength that we've put on board, is to toot our own horn for us. And just like we try to do in the private sector all day long, I mean, having brand awareness of this organization will give us clout and credentials to go tackle the hard things. And that's really what the committee is all about. So I would welcome anybody's time and effort. And I'm happy to chair going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Davey. And I would just say, and echo this comment, this is the year that we're going to see this organization really start to toot its own horn, for your language on that. I mean, that's exactly right. As we build that public engagement piece out, we're going to be a lot more visible as a regional organization than I think we've ever been. So it's a good time to join this committee. We just echo that. And again, if anyone's interested, please pass your name along or if you'd like. All right, Mr. Holland, I'm going to call on you for our audit, facilities, and finance committee report.
Yeah, first, let me start by saying, let me thank Mrs. Spoonhour for outstanding leadership. In times of challenge, as our nation has seen this year, COVID and others, leadership is evident. It rises to the top like cream, and he has done such. And I thank him for the phone calls, for the discussions we've had as we have gone through this year. I just want to applaud you. You've been an outstanding chair to work with, and I just applaud you, sir. It speaks to your character and you as a person very, very loudly. So I thank you for your leadership, what you've done, and all this organization, but for us, financial. And I want to also take this opportunity to thank the finance committee, which, as you can see, has outstanding members. When we come together, we work together. And of course, the result is an excellent report. Certainly, the numbers are good. And I'm going to ask our director to walk through it and to point out the excellent narrative, the fund balance versus target graph, which is in your report. And of course, she'll certainly discuss net income, which is excellent this year. If you don't have net income, your balance sheet suffers. So start with the income statement. Deal with that income statement first, and then your balance sheet will take care of itself. And of course, then we look next at cash flow. Make sure our cash flow is actually performing well. And so, great report. So if I may turn it over at this point, the committee last met on June 22nd, as I recall, Madam Director. And so I will yield to you with other details. You so desire, feel free to ask
Thank
some
you.
questions.
As Mr. Holland said, if you are following along in the packet, page 9, the narrative starts. I'll just kind of hit some highlights there, and you put it there. The actual statements start on page 12. So you can see in the balance sheet, we do present that in 2 ways. First, the statement of net position and then the balance sheet. And so there is a distinction there in governmental accounting and how we account, particularly for long-term liabilities. And so I want to make that clear. The committee actually had a pretty lengthy discussion about that and making sure that we were adhering to what the general consensus of the committee, what we've agreed to insofar as the fund balance. And so I'll just note, the cash position for the commission is very strong, not only just in the, what I would refer to as sort of the liquid assets, our actual 2 bank accounts with the local government investment pool and SunTrust or Truist at $737,000, but also with our accounts receivable, which are invoices that are out to our funders. So it is earned income and considered basically as cash. And so, those 2 coupled together do put us in a cash position of over $1 million, which is our fund balance target. And so, I think we're all very pleased to see that. As you can see, kind of moving down, we have our accounts receivable, as I mentioned. Those are amounts that have been actually billed to our vendors. Most of our funders pay us on a quarterly or a annual basis. And so that amount is due. And coming in, and then we also have a pretty sizable amount in the accrued revenue. And so those are activities that have occurred that are due to the commission, but have not yet been billed. And so largely that's the last quarter of our expenditures. And so those get billed following the close of the quarter at June 30th and are in process and en route now. So, and then we do also track the account with the CBTA a little bit differently so that we keep that segregated from our operating budget. And so you can see that that's also reflected there. So with current liabilities, only about 58,000 of that are accounts payable. And so those are our operating bills. So you can see, we're in a really nice position here with our fund balance as of 5/31 at $1.3 million. So again, very pleased. As Mr. Holland said, we have a chart on the next page on page 10 that itemizes where we've been with regard to fund balance and that comparison to the 1 million target. So again. And then the profit and loss continues to show good performance month over month. We had another good month in April. The committee did also talk about, what will we expect for June? And as you can imagine, staff members have been able to take some vacation time in June. And so we do expect our reimbursable billing to be a little bit lower in that month, but by no means do I expect that that's going to take a major hit to the bottom line. So we've been able to recover from a profit and loss perspective and report to you, I think, a really favorable position that we expect to maintain through the end of the year. Finance committee will meet, where we would just working this week to be able to figure out a date that works, and so we'll be pushing that out for everyone's benefit, especially those that volunteered this morning, looking at August 3rd to be able to look at kind of a preliminary report of the June financials, and also to be able to talk about the audit for the upcoming fiscal year. Mr. Holland has been just phenomenal in advising on ways that we can improve the display, the presentation of our financial statement so that we can provide useful information to all of you. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, yes. Peter, are we looking at new accounting software in conjunction with some of the other things that were here on page 11? There was some talk at one point about actually having new accounting software, bringing that in, revamping that system and training folks on the new software. Is that still a plan and an expenditure that
very much on the table for discussion. I think at this stage, we're evaluating different options for everyone's benefit. We currently use QuickBooks, which is a useful software, but I would say that given the increase in the revenue sources that we're managing, there might be some alternatives out there that would better suit our needs. And, so we're evaluating that and would expect that the finance committee would be taking that on as a topic this fiscal year.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Is there a motion to accept?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for that question. We appreciate that. We did discuss that last year, absolutely right, Mr. Davis. So thank you. And we have a lot of other things we're discussing as committee, as mentioned. And so with that, Mr. Chair, I would, well, of course, I'll let you move the motion, but sir.
Oh, no, sir. No, I just accepted the financial statements.
Therefore, I would move that we accept the May financial statements for audit, to adopt them for audit and review by our external auditor.
Moved by Mr. Holland. Second, Ms. Van, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Great job.
Mr. Davey, we got you down for public outreach committee update, and there's a lot going on there.
There is, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for the conversation that we had about including the numbers. I'm going to continue to do that and tell a quick story. I got a phone call at lunch the other day from Jim Yukon. And somehow he found out that I'm serving on this board and leading this committee. And his question just was, how's it going? Because he knew of the RRPDC, but very honestly, this current role really didn't know much about PlanRVA. And I found myself at the tip of my tongue talking about all the great things that's gone on over the course of the last 24 months, the last 36 months, and where we find ourselves going. And in his own way, he said, Tim, more people ought to know about that. So to some degree, that really became sort of, to me, a little bit of a rallying point for really what it is that we have to do and what it is that we talked about earlier. And the grant that Martha sought out to put the strategy in place, which is now in draft form, is exactly what's going to start, providing the foundation for us to do that. So my understanding is Martha has reviewed the draft of that report. That we will, as a committee, Mr. Thornton, will see that in August. So we'll have to get together as a committee and start reviewing that in August. And then our plan would be to really present that framework and that strategy to this body for discussion and adoption at the September meeting. So Martha, I'm not sure if you want to talk about any more of the specifics about it, but as you said, Mr. Chairman, there's a lot going on that is going to go on and continue to go on through the summer. I'm excited for where that's going to take this organization. And so obviously all of the specific questions you may have, I'm going to direct to Martha, but I just sort of echo again how excited I am to chair the committee going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Davey.
I'll just elaborate for a moment. It's been referenced this morning, our bench team of consultants. That has been just a really tremendous opportunity for the commission. One, to be able to access these professional support services, because as you know, we don't have that capacity internal to our organization. But second, because of the way that, and I'll toot my horn of our organization, the way that we constructed that RFP, we took care to consult with not only the public information officers from each of your localities, but also their procurement departments to make sure that that RFP satisfied the locality purchasing requirements so that your localities can purchase from that bench. And so I know that just from an email this week, one of our localities is in active conversation with the firms on that bench to be able to procure directly from those firms. And we've been in conversation with at least 3 of the other jurisdictions. So I'm just really excited that, again, thinking about how we could use cooperative procurement under Eric's guidance to be able to not only fulfill our organizational needs, but to be able to provide this resource and service to the member jurisdictions. And that kind of twofer, I think, is a great example of where regional collaboration tends to make things more efficient. So excited about that. And as Mr. Davey mentioned, the community engagement strategy is, again, couldn't think of another moment where we're really kind of rethinking everything after pandemic, but being positioned to really be able to have an audit of what our current practices have been, what the expectations sort of in our community are and how we can respond to that going forward. And I think that there's just a lot of opportunity for us. There is no shortage of recommendations in this report. I think that the task of the committee and the board is going to be how do we prioritize them, because there's a lot that we can undertake. And so how do we do that in a smart manner? And how do we partner in the region, not just across the jurisdictions, but with other regional public bodies in realizing that vision? It's just a really exciting time, and I think that this is the opportunity for our organization to sort of shine in being able to articulate, all the things that the localities do together, which is really what it's about. So.
And if I could, I'm sorry.
You go first.
If I could add to that, so as chair of the Great Richmond Partnership, and I think Mr. Davey, I might have been responsible for that. Throw to you because I sat down with Bobby and Jim to kind of bring them up to speed. Factors like GRP are getting very engaged in community discussion. I think the pandemic identified some opportunities for us to be able to work more collaboratively, elevating and marketing this entire region, talking about what we're doing, talking about the integration of how that's important. We're rebuilding our board and expanding our board on GRP and realigning where we are as well. And so those opportunities exist when you're having these conversations. And in particular, the Richmond leadership circle of folks who seem to be like the shakers and movers in the business community of the city and the surrounding region who know nothing, it seems to be, about all these organizations that are working very much collaboratively with them to advance the region, but they seem to be over here, and we're over here. So I think those opportunities really exist, and the time is right. The time is right that everybody, I think, is recognizing we all need to be on the same page and working together to really highlight and elevate the region and all the fabulous work we're doing. And so I think that's part of the opportunities we all see. And I think that every one of us has connections we don't necessarily think about to expand that message when given the opportunity.
That's great. Mr. Waters.
Thank you. Ms. Heaters and Mr. Davies' comments about the outreach triggers a thought. I don't know if y'all have covered this in your meetings, but the Wilder School has urban studies, and I've taken a couple classes. I would suggest if the commission to offer to have a presentation on PlanRVA, because I think there's a dearth of information about the bodies that plan. They cover the basics and they do it well, but I took the land use and infrastructure and active and sustainable transportation, covered the basics, covered it well, but the bigger picture was lacking. They had some presenters from different groups, but this group I think is more important, more area wide, and they need to hear of that. So we'll talk offline. Just some thoughts.
With their curriculum, and I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I would like to add to that real quickly. I think something with that too is we plan, we go back, we apply, we get funding, we design, engineer, and we implement. And that's a multi-year process. And so decisions that people see hitting their streets today, we decided a part of like 4 or 5 years ago, potentially. And I think that's the cycle that makes people confused about the good decisions and work we do here, because it's years out. There's no celebration of the work that's being done today in this group because we're doing the next 5-year plan, right? I think that needs to be communicated as part of that too, is what this body does together. It's fantastic work, coordinated, jurisdictional, really collaborative, but then it takes time to go do the work. And it's with VDOT, and it's with our own funding, and it's with our own plans. And I don't think that's truly understood beyond the work we do every day. And that's a key part of that, is maybe the timeline of a decision made by this body to hit your neighborhood could be 4 to 5 years. And it's okay. It's the speed of government. It's designed that way. But that's something key to that too.
Mr. Assen, that's a great comment. And I think just Mr. Davey and our public outreach committee, it illustrates one of the challenges that we have. The public will respond to what it is we're trying to get to in any given instance or project or plan. And so that's something that I think this report will highlight. I think everybody will be pleased when they see some of the recommendations coming out of that. Good. Executive Director's report.
Thank you. Included in your packet, this is just a refresh. You've seen this digitally before, so here's a print version for you. I just wanted to say thank you. It has not, from a content perspective, materially changed, so I just wanted to hit the highlights of the design. Took your feedback from last time seriously, and so we worked to try to create a better delineation. I think one of the comments was it was hard to tell what was in which line of business. So hopefully those lines and marks make that clearer now. I know Mr. Peterson, you had mentioned, having a little bit of a guide of what key imperatives, what are the key imperatives. So we created that on the second sort of legend there, so that you can reference, if it's hitting, if our CBTA program is hitting key imperative number 5, you can reference that, but that's one of our special priorities. So just kind of crosswalks that a little bit more. We'll continue to refine this, but this will become a part of the staple of the packet each month. And I'll just hit a highlight each month of something exciting going on, and won't belabor the whole thing. But my hope is that this will be, one, an opportunity for you to just get kind of an at a glance of the breadth of work and where we're moving. But 2, to be able to know what staff member you could reach out to if you want to know more information. And that's one of the things we want to make sure is that, particularly as we get back to in-person, our staff members will be more available and present to you instead of, I know we have a couple that are on the virtual thing today, but definitely want to make sure that you know who you can reach out to get more information, particularly if it is one of those things that affects one of the communities that you serve.
Comments, questions about the dashboard?
Mr. Chairman, I want to comment that I think this is an outstanding job of the dashboard, and I appreciate that. That came out of our chair this year. Thank you, Mr. Scornhauser, for putting this, leading the way, if you will, and for making this very easy to read and walk through. So I want to applaud you, Ms. Heater. Tremendous job, tremendous time. Just all the best in this regard. Thank you. One of the things I think is so important is information is great, but if you can't share it, communicate it, it has limited use and does people. So I applaud you and thank you, Ms. Heater, for a tremendous job in this regard.
Thank you.
Intergovernmental and environmental.
These are included as an information item. As usual, you can see staff is busy taking a look at different requests that come in, just to orient those that either are new or that have been around a while and wonder why we put this in our packet. Code requires that the planning district commissions across Virginia be that consultative agency when there is a federally required or state required consultation. And so from a process standpoint, our staff receives those requests for consultation
are unmuted.